Ladies and gentlemen of the media, welcome to the PVP Weekly Press Conference. With me, as usual, is our General Secretary. We'll be reading two statements, after which we'll be taking the questions. J.S.?
The first statement reads as follows. The Central Committee, CC, of the People's Progressive Party met on Saturday, June the 4th, 2016. The main highlight of the meeting was the report to the Central Committee from the party General Secretary Clement Rohi, which formed the basis for discussions on the way forward in terms of strengthening the party, both organizationally and ideologically, in order to deliver on its mandate to ensure a peaceful, progressive, and prosperous Guyana with the PBPC back in office. Based on the General Secretary's report, the Central Committee reviewed developments at the local and international levels. The Central Committee took note of the developments in the global economy, which appears to be in the throes of another crisis in the financial sector, compounded by a slow growth pattern on a global scale and influenced by increasing protectionist measures, which in turn is impacted negatively on global trade and growth, estimated to be at 3.4% in 2016 and 3.6% in 2017. At the national level, the Central Committee took the view that unless these danger signals at the global level are taken into account by the Granger-led coalition administration, the, quote, rapid economic development with meaningful job creation, with adequate wages and remuneration in the presence of a dynamic and modern economy, end of quote, promised in the 2015 Elections Manifesto will become a pipe dream, and the Guyanese people will be made to suffer the consequences unnecessarily. The Central Committee took note of the economic and social decline that characterized the first year of the Granger-led APNU-AFC coalition administration. The Central Committee expressed alarm over the fact that in less than a year, the local economy has contracted significantly due primarily to economic mismanagement and fiscal indiscipline. This has resulted in a loss in investor confidence and the consequential inability to create new jobs for a growing youth population. The Central Committee took note of the volatile political situation in the neighboring countries of Venezuela and Brazil and the severe socio-economic impact it is having on the lives of the working people. The growing conflict in the Middle East and the rise of extremist and xenophobic tendencies in a number of European countries was also examined. In analyzing the current political situation in the country, the Central Committee condemned the continuing witch hunting and unjustifiable attacks against party leaders and professionals who are perceived to be sympathetic to the PVPC by the Granger administration and express its resolve to defend itself against such politically motivated actions by the Granger administration. Note was also taken by the Central Committee of attempts by certain elements to sow the seeds of discord within the leadership of the party. The party reiterated its resolve to counter any such attempts to divide the party. The Central Committee expressed satisfaction over the performance of the party in the recent municipal and local government elections, with the party won by an overwhelming majority. The Central Committee condemned the efforts by the Granger administration to undermine the democratic elected RDCs and NDCs controlled by the PVPC and resolved to mount a more aggressive fight back against government's wrongdoings at the regional and national levels. The Central Committee deliberated comprehensively on ways of preserving the substantial gains for the people made by the PPPC administration, which are now being systematically eroded by the current APNU-AFC regime. Emphasis was also placed on the need to broaden the appeal and reach of the party with respect to significant stakeholders and the society as a whole. The urgency of the party to retake political power within the shortest possible time was emphasized in order to arrest the downward trajectory in which the country is now heading. The Central Committee in its deliberations recalled that GCOM, in collusion with the APNU-AFC operatives, were responsible for the party losing government in 2015, and that the resolve of the party must be never again. The climate of fear and insecurity which now stalk the land was seen by the CC as a manifestation of the gross incompetence of the current regime to guarantee public safety and security of the Guyanese people. The Central Committee resolved to exert every effort to strengthen the party organizationally, to improve party discipline, as well as the unity and cohesion of its entire membership. The Central Committee resolved unanimously to hold its 31st Congress in the last quarter of 2016 in keeping with the party's constitution. The next statement reads as follows. The People's Progressive Party, on behalf of its thousands of supporters, and particularly its entire membership, extends its deepest sympathies and heartfelt condolences to the immediate family and millions of followers of boxing icon Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, one of the most celebrated sports personalities of the 20th century, is indeed a legend in the world of sport. The 3-time world heavyweight champion dominated the world boxing arena for more than 2 decades. He first arrived on the world scene with a gold medal at the World Olympic Games. Ali was born in Louisville, Kentucky on January 17, 1942. He became known as the Golden Boy, Cassius Marcellus Clay. In his prime days, he spoke out against racism, war, and religious intolerance. In the 1960s and 70s, he resisted supporting his government in the war against the people of Vietnam. Stripped of his world boxing title for refusing to join the U.S. Army and fight in Vietnam, Ali returned to the ring and reigned supreme. Ali will forever be remembered as the greatest, a boxer who moved, quote, like a butterfly and stung like a bee, end of quote. We in the PPP will forever hold in high esteem the great Muhammad Ali and join the millions of people around the world who are celebrating the life of a good, exemplary man. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
Those were the statements. Questions?
Yes, sir. Sorry, I got that. The General Secretary spoke about Guyana being in the throes of a financial economic crisis.
No, not Guyana. The global economy.
The global economy in the throes. And they said that Guyana is also in economic decline. That things bad and all of that.
Yeah.
I want to quote the chairman of the Bank of Guyana from May 23rd. He said the first quarter there was mixed performance. Inflation was about 0.5%. However, the net purchase of foreign currency had gone up. There was a movement in the surplus. The bank reserve increased. There was a marginal increase in domestic debt, but a 5% decrease in loans to the private sector. That there were very sound macro indicators. That's the chairman of the Bank of Guyana. Isn't that in contradiction?
The governor.
The governor of the Bank of Guyana, sorry. Isn't that in contradiction to what you're saying, sir?
Well, I don't think there was any comparative analysis was done. He's quoting what the current situation is, but I mean, we need to do the comparative analysis. What In other words, he needs to do the analysis of what existed before, and that is in the corresponding period for last year and over the past 5 years, and what he is saying obtains now. Well, we don't expect the governor of the Bank of Guyana to take the analysis that we are making. That is, of course, his analysis, but the PBP is free to make its own analysis based on how we judge the situation.
Next.
Mr. Rohit, sir, could you tell us now that pretty much you've set a time frame for the holding of Congress? What next has to be done?
What next has to be done?
As far as your
Well, all right. Now that the Central Committee has agreed that we will proceed with the Congress in the last quarter of this year, the executive now has to meet to agree on the establishment of a Congress committee, and the Congress committee will then begin its work in terms of the venue, the date, and the theme for the Congress. Yeah. Of course, there are other matters that will have to be dealt with that are principally of an organizational nature.
And sir, can you see how critical is this Congress, given it will be the first time that your party will be out of power in more than 2 decades?
Okay, well, don't forget that we have been having Congresses all the time.
Yes, but this
We had a Congress in 2013. We've assessed our performance in government, and we've also assessed the political and economic situation in the country that, from a party point of view. We've also assessed how the party, what is the party's bill of health in the last Congress of 2013, as we would do at all Congresses. At this Congress, now that we are in the opposition, a new perspective will obviously be formulated. And you have to take into consideration that our executive committee has been meeting every week to assess the situation. So has our central committee, has been meeting, I think, quarterly to assess the political situation in the country. So, this is what you call a political work in progress.
could you elaborate on what you mean by perspective will be developed?
Perspective that now we're in the opposition and the regaining of political power. That's our fundamental task ahead of us.
Was Mr. Jagli at this central committee meeting?
Yeah.
X.
For example, news source. Mr. Roy, could you say if either at the CC meeting or the executive meeting at weekend one?
If what?
If either at the CC meeting, the central committee meeting, or the executive committee meeting on Friday, I think it was, if the matter involving MP Daramal come up and what were
There was no executive meeting on the Friday. Traditionally, the executive does not meet on the Friday before the central committee meetings. So the executive committee will meet this Friday.
and the matter didn't come up at the CC?
No.
Was he there?
Yes, he was there.
Sir, I still like this economy thing. The IMF said that the economy was in good shape, that it would grow by 4%, and that whatever happens this year was actually reversing a declining trend from the previous government over the past 2 years. Do you still insist that the economy is in decline?
I still insist because I think at a press conference that was held by Mr. Jagdio sometime last week, he made some comments on the matter. I think he said he didn't want to, he will deal with the economy in a more expansive way later on. But he did warn, he did point out, and I don't think anybody could question Mr. Jagdio's prognosis as an economist in Guyana. He did warn that the country could face dangers if the Gage administration don't take steps to arrest the situation.
Mr. Roy, if I could go back to my earlier questions. I know you personally had a meeting with Mr. Daramal. Could you say what the extent of his explanations in relation to this to you?
I will report to the executive what were the nature of the discussions I had with Mr. Dharamlal, and then the executive committee will, look at all that has been heard and said on the matter, and then we will pronounce.
Are you worried based on what you heard?
No, I'm not worried by what I heard.
You mentioned that the party is ready to defend itself
Mhm.
against, whatever might be said, negatively about it. As the General Secretary, what is your defense to the forensic audits which have implicated a former minister under your government, a former PVP parliamentarian in
No, you need to be a little specific,
former Minister Sheikh Bash,
Mhm.
former parliamentarian Jafar Ali. What is your defense to the negative perception these cases might bring to the party?
What is my defense?
Yes, as the General Secretary.
Well, we have not seen those audit reports. I understand that they are on the Ministry of Finance website, so I understand, but I haven't accessed them as yet. And we have always maintained that the audit reports should be shared with the former chairman of these boards and with those members of the boards who served, the past immediate members of the board, so that they could give, their assessment of what is in these audit reports. But as it is right now, I don't think we can really give any kind of an objective assessment or, objective response to the audit reports until we have a fair and balanced appreciation of those who served before. And I don't think those who are serving now can really do that because it's early days yet. Those reports are based on what took place current to the auditors in the past. So,
On the year government.
huh?
On the year government.
Yeah, so let the reports be shared and be officially handed to the ex-chairman and ex-serving members of those boards so that they can have their take on it as well.
Slowly will the party be at any time soon begin repaying or continue to pay debts owed to NCN, which amount to millions of dollars, and what has been described as pretty much free advertisements during the political campaigns of 2011 and 2015?
Well, you're asking me to respond to what has appeared in the newspapers. We can't respond to monies owed to us based on what has appeared in the newspaper. We have to be able to, get the facts.
But
And
do you
based
know
on
your
the
party owes NCN?
Pardon?
Does your party owe NCN?
We have asked for the data. We have asked for the invoices. We've asked also for, the materials to be attached as proof or evidence for these debts. We haven't received anything as yet.
How long ago was this requested?
Quite some time ago.
From this date back to 2011?
Well, I'm saying quite some time ago.
From whom?
What is that?
Who did you ask for the information?
NCN.
We must get human resource manager, accountant, some department.
Well, we sent it to NCN, to the board.
Next, any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Roy,
We got Adam. No, we got Adam before.
Please, Mr. Mustafa.
Oh, follow up. Okay.
Yes, follow up. Sir, but to what extent are you worried that, or what is your view that the party may have taken advantage of its then incumbency to access free advertisements in NCA?
Politicians don't worry so easily. It takes a lot of stuff to worry a politician.
But did you use...
No, I'm answering the question you asked me if I'm worried.
Uh-huh.
It takes a lot to really worry a politician, especially a politician who has been around for quite some time. I don't think Mr. Granger is easily worried about some of the things which we are saying here. I'm not so sure.
But the party used its incumbency to take advantage of free advertisements in NCA.
I don't know about the party. I know the party pays for whatever services it purchases or solicits or procures or that is outsourced. The PPP I'm talking about. So we need to make a distinction when we see whatever they have, whether it's the government ministries or whether it's the PPP. Because sometimes we get these things mixed up. You know, PPP government, some people may say it's the PPP, but then it might be a government ministry.
By the party.
Pardon?
I'm talking about political advertisements for the party.
Uh-huh.
Whether the party use its advantage of incumbency to acquire free advertisements in NC.
Well, that's a judgment issue. That's a judgment issue to claim one way or the other.
Sir, there were billboards that were paid for by GWI that were branded with the PPP logo, and that came out some time ago.
Well, that's exactly the point I'm making. GWI. So GWI probably has a bill to somebody.
Yeah.
Forensic auditors have red flag with what's known as the media monitoring.
Pardon?
The media monitors
Mhm.
with NCN,
Mm.
included in
I
that.
noticed we gone off of these statements completely, but I'm not saying anything. I'm being a little flexible this morning. Don't think I've not observed it. I've observed it. I've observed it, yeah, but go ahead.
Included in that group is your daughter. Are you not worried about the negative perception?
No, man, why should I be worried about that? Anybody is free to apply for a job. Any Guyanese is free to apply anywhere, when in the public or private sector, for a job. She may have applied for a job. She got a job. She was paid. I noticed one newspaper said millions of dollars, but I think the salary is about $30,000 to $40,000. I don't know how much it is or how often it is. But, you know, sometimes when we write about these things, we put it in millions of dollars as though.
Collectively, the group was paid millions.
Well, I don't know about the collective issue. You asked me about my daughter. I'm not my daughter's keeper. She's a grown woman. And she's free to apply anywhere for a job. She applied for a job, she got a job, and that's it. But she never asked me to write an, what you call it,
Pressure to get the job.
a recommendation to get a job.
But forensic auditors could not determine what exactly was that they were doing or what were their duties.
Well, that's their job to do that. It's not for me to do that. I don't know. I work here and I was at government. I could tell you what I was doing in the Ministry of Home Affairs, and I could tell you what I am doing now here. But I can't speak for her.
Mr. Ray, I understand that you say that she's a grown woman, but have you sought any explanation from her in relation to what was published in the article?
No, I haven't done that.
All right, thank you, Franco. You talk about the continuing witch hunt on party leaders and sympathizers.
Mhm.
About 6 months ago, you promised that having compiled the list, you would release the names of some of these people being witch hunted.
Mhm.
You ready?
No, we're not ready yet. Don't worry. The pot is still boiling.
All right. About how many, from
The
whatever?
pot is still boiling.
We're running out of gas.
No. We never run out of gas.
From whatever information you might have gathered so far,
Uh-huh.
about how many names you got on this list that you...
Quite a few.
About how many?
No. Quite a few. I would prefer to bat safe and say quite a few. If I tell you X number, you will, you know. So let me just bottom pad, quite a few.
Mr. Ray, you had a lot of night in you. You spoke in your first statement about attempts being made to sow seeds of discord in the party.
Mm.
Can you expound a little on that?
Well, we read, in the newspapers these efforts, and I think most people who are prolific and attentive in their reading would draw the inferences from what I would have said.
So this is not in-house something you're talking about?
No. This is external.
Mr. Roy, can I take you back to the plans for Congress or Congress itself?
Mm-hmm.
Quite apart from the fact that, well, let me put the question this way. Quite apart from the fact that you're out of government and you'd like to regain political power, what do you see as the major challenge facing the party today while it is out of power?
Well, seeking electoral reforms, GCOM, That is to say, e-registration, a new voters list, voting by voting machines, electronic voting, and e-tabulation of the results of the votes. We have spoken on this in the past, and of course we want certain reforms at GCOM as well, which is manifested in the regular picketing and the ongoing picketing exercises that we will hold, making certain demands, because usually the press would turn up at these picketing exercises and would ask, how long do we intend to continue? Or what do you intend to gain? And my response would always be, we'll continue until our demands are met, which we are positive and optimistic about, and we are optimistic about that.
Sir, we noticed that you haven't reacted to the grenade throwing incident at Kaito News, although sometimes you're the first to react to things. It happened around the same time Muhammad Ali died, and I heard a statement from Muhammad Ali. Your reaction, sir, given that even during your tenure, Kaito News came under attack a number of times, 5 pressmen died on one time, the press was firebombed on another occasion. Your reaction to this recent incident?
Well, here again, this is another serious challenge to the law enforcement agencies. You know, the police has another challenge there. But what I found somewhat disgusting in the whole statement that was issued by the government was that they're pointing the police in the direction of the People's Progressive Party, you know, because those instances that were listed by implication, you know, reeks of the PPP being the prime suspect.
Are you?
Now I'm saying that the People's Progressive Party has always been opposed to any act of terrorism. We've been doing so since the 1960s, when the X-13 plan was exposed, was revealed. And in the statement, it says that it was a grave and undisputed act of terror designed to intimidate and harm and create fear. The question is by whom? The question is by who? So I don't know. There's a lot of talk about whether this thing probably is a publicity stunt to gain attention or to distract attention. In fact, I read this morning in today's newspaper, or somewhere I read somewhere that Mr. Glenn Lal has been making protestations about firearms being returned to him. I don't know whether this is an attempt to force the police to return his firearms.
And did you try to verify whether the incident did happen as reported?
We are not police sleuths. We can't verify anything. The police has to do their work professionally, and but they got to be careful of the innuendos in the government statement, listing about 4 or 5 matters that have, you know, as I said, reeks of People's Progressive Party being the prime suspect.
Would I therefore take it that your statement would say, be careful of this report, that it could be a stage something?
No, I wouldn't go so far. We will be much more comprehensive in addressing this matter later on.
Any other question? If not, thank you.
A quick follow-up on your question.
Congress again?
No, not Congress. Sir, in light of all that has been said, I know you said you haven't read the audit reports, you want to get official copies and so on. But in light of all that has been said with respect to the debt owed to NCN, would the party now be making fresh efforts to approach NCN to say, look, we want the invoices, we are willing to pay, we are ready to pay?
They have correspondence from us that remains unanswered. That's a government agency. They have to do their work.
And so what's the state of play with the MPs and the extra money from Parliament?
Well, as I told you some time ago, that Mr. Irfan Ali and Ms. Gail Teixeira are the two signatories to that account, from what I could recall. The money, I suppose, is being deposited regularly by the MPs, being deducted. I can speak only for myself. I can't speak for the others, but I have to assume that everything is being deducted, Mr.
Yes, am I to
Zulfikar Mustafa.
Well, your friend actually said he surprised that he was responsible for this thing. I called him and he said as much to me. He wasn't aware that he was in charge of monitoring the extra pay being deposited.
Well, I'm not so sure whether, you got to be careful how you use the words. I mean, I never said that he was in charge of monitoring the depositing. That sounds like policing. But the signatories to the account for any money to be withdrawn are the two persons that I just mentioned. Now, whether they would wish to disclose information of the type that you're seeking, whatever shape, form, or fashion, that's another matter.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much.